guys, welcome to our first mini episode, episode 7.5 of Eat, Drink, Write, an Urban Fantasy Whiteboard. I am Sherry Ellison.
And I'm Taylor Ellison.
And today we're going to talk about the series plotting.
Series plotting. So basically plotting across an entire series. How do you plot a series? Because all the books in that series have to be connected.
And that's a common thing. Urban fantasies tend to be more than one book. I don't know that I've ever, well, I can't say I've never, but the majority of them are series.
Yeah, because I think we talked about it a little bit last week. I don't remember if we were on air or not, but I don't think that I have ever read one that has only been one book.
Yeah. So, and as a writer, I've always wondered, it seems so overwhelming.
Uh-huh.
How do you go about doing this whole arc thing?
Yeah.
I've got a slight definition. It's the main concept. The multi-novel arc is the main concept that flows across all the books in your series.
Oh, yeah. No, that's a good definition.
Then there are also the parts of that concept that are concluded within each book.
Mm-hmm.
And each book in the series has to have details that flesh out that main arc. There has to be something in each book that goes towards that main overlying arc, or it has no business being in that series.
Right. So basically treating it as just one giant plot.
Correct. It's like one big book, but broken down into
its pieces.
Definite ending pieces.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's neat. I like that idea that it's just one giant plot.
I do too. That makes it less overwhelming somehow.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, because then that way you're like, oh, we've already talked about plotting, and we have ideas of where to start for plotting, and you can just do that same thing, I think, for series plotting, which leads into my first bullet, which is where to start. And I think you have to start with a central idea, like what is your giant plot about? What is it? What are you trying to tell? What story are you trying to tell with it? And then, find a key plot point for each book that leads up to telling that story.
Okay.
And then kind of think about how many books you'll need in order to get that across, which I know that you have some notes about that too.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have, list your ideas for your series end goal, or goals if you have multiple goals that you want to get across.
For the overarching series.
For the whole series.
Okay.
What's the end goal for the whole series? And I think that ties into the central idea of your series, because I think your central idea is kind of the main goal. Like, what do you want to get across?
Mm-hmm.
Again, what story do you want to tell with these books?
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, I have, what's your series setting and how does it affect the plot? Because that might tie into, where your plot goes for your entire series.
Okay.
Like we said on our last episode, the Fever series starts out in Georgia and then ends up in Ireland and then ends up very different.
Yes.
By the end of the series. So I think that the setting would help a lot.
That's true.
And then, this is one thing that I thought would be very helpful. Read summaries of successful series plot structures and draw inspiration from those.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, see what plots have worked for series.
Ah.
What's a really good what's your favorite series that you've ever read? Kind of draw inspiration from those.
My problem with doing that is like Kresley Cole. She's one of my favorites, and every time I try to study her, I get sucked right back into the book again, and I don't learn anything all over again.
Yeah. Maybe it would help, though, if you, read just summaries of them.
That's true.
As opposed to, trying to read the books
into the book.
Study the books.
That's true.
Because I have the same issue. I sit down to read her books, and then suddenly I've read the book, and I didn't actually study it. So I have that issue, too. The next thing I have is to have characters that are interesting to read about. And that will make your readers want to keep reading the series.
Mm-hmm.
So that's less about the plotting, but more about, how to keep a series going.
Okay.
And how to keep it interesting,
Mm-hmm.
I guess. Because your characters are going to do stuff that are going to hopefully advance that giant plot,
Mm-hmm.
as well as the plots within each book.
I have a little bit on that too.
Oh, cool. Let's see. Create an outline of your series main events and place them in a timeline. So I know when we were talking about plotting in general, I do this thing where I write out the main events that I have in my head and then put them in chronological order and then connect them.
Do you do them on index cards or something?
Whiteboards.
Oh, yeah. We talked about that. I'm thinking index cards might work better for me because then you can move them easily.
Around. Yeah. And I think I have seen people do that before, but I love whiteboards because I can just erase and move it. And writing it out helps me think about it a little bit more too. So whiteboards are just my thing.
And I'm color coded, which with whiteboards you can use different colors.
I have so many
inks.
colors.
Okay.
Yep.
But with the postcard, the little card thingies, you can have those come in different color too. Or you can use sticky notes.
True, or different colored pens. And sticky notes are good too.
Because you can actually use sticky notes on a whiteboard because they stick to the whiteboard.
It's true. No, it's true.
And then you can move them easily without having to erase or draw lines or whatever.
Yeah.
I diverse. I'm sorry.
No, that's good. But yeah, so create an outline of your series main events. So I guess like the main plot point in each book that lends to that giant plot, the overarching plot.
Oh, that makes sense.
And put them in chronological order.
So what happens in this book that helps that plot move on?
Yeah.
I gotcha.
Yeah,
okay.
I have a little bit about that because I'm going to talk a little bit about one of my series that I'm doing. But before that, the last bullet point that I have is choose a starting point. What begins the larger story of your series? What kicks off that plot? And start there.
That was like the trouble I was having with Hallow and her Yesmere. I didn't know where to start it.
Right. Yeah, but like once you choose a starting point, then go ahead and just start from there and then strengthen the arcs of your books later. Because you can start it, you can get that plot going, and then you can strengthen that later.
Okay.
You can always go back and change things.
Okay,
so
that's true.
And then I was going to talk a little bit about the series that I'm writing or trying to write, planning to write. It's going to be a very long series, and I already have an idea that I want to convey with this series. And basically the world is in trouble, and that's like the basis of it. And what I want to get across is that a lot of different people can come together and work together in order to fix the world.
Okay.
So that's what I want to do. So each book is going to it's going to be from the point of view of a different character for each book.
Okay.
So I'll start out, book one is a girl named Kat. It's her story. And she'll have her story and her own problems that she has to deal with in her book. But it's also going to be the opening of what is going wrong in the world.
Okay.
And she'll be the first witness of that through her eyes in this book. And then the next book will be about one of her friends. And it'll be, her issues and like her problems in her own book, but she will also advance that larger plot.
Is each one going to have known the person in the other books?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
But we will usually see characters in the next books somewhere before.
Okay.
I don't think I have any plans to just pull someone out of the blue. I think they'll always be mentioned previously, whether that main character knows them or not.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I think that's a good idea. Like the Kresley Cole series, you see these background characters and you're like, I can't wait till she writes that story.
Yeah.
So that would be a good way to do yours as well.
I think so too, because I think that'll lend towards, creating characters that are interesting. So, like you said, if you see background characters and you're like, oh, she seems pretty interesting, like I want to know her story, her book might be coming down, down the line. So, yeah, that's all I've got.
Okay, neat. Well, I kind of approached it as, from my point of view, I'm always overwhelmed by the idea of this long series and how to do it. So
right.
I was like, okay, so how do you do it? And it does require more than that pantser approach, which I think I've already said I am much more of a pantser than I should be probably. It can still be fluid. You're not tied into anything. Things can change even after you've written the first book, but you are bound by certain things that happen in that book, especially once it's published. You can't go back and change that within reason. Now, I have seen books that went and did a prequel that was able to explain something, or a scene that we thought, like in the Karen Moaning series, there was a scene that came up later that we as the reader had no idea what actually happened during that time frame.
Right.
And she was able to come in and write that scene later, and it worked beautifully. So
it was great.
So it can be done, but generally you got to be prepared to be bound by what happens in the first book you write, which is scary.
Yeah.
Because as I write one book, I often go back and change things totally in the very beginning.
Yeah.
So I can just see in a series that I'm going to be 3 books in going, oh,
I could have done this.
Yeah. And if book 1's already published, I'm stuck. Now, if book 1 isn't published yet, then there's still time to change it. But so outlining, I think, is something that is important. My notes also say outline those main events and themes. Jot down basic ideas for each individual book just to make sure that you're going in the right direction and that it is furthering the overall plot arc of the entire series.
Yeah.
Think about how many books, just like you said. Is it a trilogy or is it open-ended? My Frickin' Fairies is open-ended.
That's a good point. That's definitely something to think about when you're thinking about where you want your series to go.
Yeah.
How many books is it going to take to
definitely.
get there?
The Dragonfire series, although it's not urban fantasy, it's more romantic, high fantasy. That's a definite 3 books. There is no more that I could think of for that. It's Dragonfire, Dragon Tears, and Dragon Scales.
Mm-hmm.
So that one I know is a trilogy. But Frickin' Fairies is honestly open-ended.
Right, it could go on forever.
And then think about the overlying theme, like Harry Potter, good versus evil. Is there an overarching mystery that's got to be solved? My Hallow and Yesmare series, that's all about the coming alignment. The alignments of the planets happen, and that's how the elementals got into our world to begin with.
Right.
And the next alignment is coming. And so everything in the overall arc is about that alignment. But each individual story has its own issues that are going on, but all of it is because of this coming alignment and what each group is worried about or hopes to accomplish.
That sounds cool.
Yeah, I'm still struggling on that one. And then detailing the how to do this. Your protagonist has got to grow and change throughout the series. You can't have, them grow in the first book and then stop growing.
Right.
Through the entire series, your protagonist has got to grow and change. And then that actually will help you determine where each book needs to be structured based on the changes in your protagonist. If you look at that and you see definite events that cause them to change, that might be a book.
Right, yeah. And I think it probably should be.
It probably should be.
Yeah.
Take a rough look at your plan for each. Take a look at your rough plan for each book and ensure that there is a needed climax in each one. Because if you have a book that you think you're writing and there's no climax in that one, it's not a standalone book in that series. It needs to be merged with one of the other books in that series, the one before, the one after. So you got to, you may think in your head, oh, these are my 3 books or 10 books,
right.
But that book may not be a book by itself. It may have to be a plot that's interwoven into one of the other books.
Yeah, definitely.
Be sure to consider how and when you're going to add new characters in to keep things interesting. Like with your series, you're going to have a new, well, not new, but
right.
Different character in each book, which is going to be very interesting.
Yeah.
You're never going to get bored.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have your same group of people not interacting with new people. You've got to have new people to keep that arc alive.
Yeah.
And I think that was basically all I had. I've got I think I was going to say about my Frickin' Fairies.
Mm-hmm.
How open-ended it is. Part of it, I mean, just the titles of them, I just kind of wanted to throw this out for our listeners. I've got Frickin' Fairies, Dern Dragons, Wretched Witches, Pesky Pixies. So you see the theme there.
Naggy Gnomes.
So yeah, it could go on. And poor Beck, who's just a human, gets involved in all of these things. So
it's going to be great.
Yeah, very funny. I'm on the 2nd of that series. So that's the first time I've ever written. All of my books have ideas for series.
Yeah.
But I've never actually written the 2nd book
before.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I had this thought that I need to get published before I do book 2. Well,
right.
I love this series so much.
You're willing to just go ahead and
I couldn't stop writing because I want to know more about what Beck's going to do this time.
Yeah. Neat.
But that was our mini. Thank you guys for listening. Come check out us on our social media. It's all out there. Please visit our Patreon, patreon.com/EDW podcast. We could use your help.
Feel free to send us some emails if you have ideas for series plotting as well, or you found things that have worked for you, or if you want to know anything more about what we talked about, send us an email. We're happy to answer. So,
thank you.